Alright, so in front of me I have the SCX-200 kit, and you'll probably notice I'm going to be using some aluminum hardware. It's purple. I got it from Fastener Express, but the bulk of the kit is the carbon. So in the kit you're going to get 4 arms. You're going to get a bottom plate, a mid plate, and a top plate. And I'm just going to go through a real quick assembly of how all this goes together, because I've had a lot of questions about how it's all stacked and where the flight controller and PDB and just all kinds of little details that are hard to see in the pictures, but I think the video will show better how this thing goes together. It's actually quite simple. So I'm going to start off, get rid of the top plate. We're just going to take the bottom plate and the mid plate with the 4 arms, and we're going to assemble that. Now you'll notice that the arms have this little zigzag in them and they narrow down, so you're going to want to keep that in mind, because that's going to determine how we assemble them to the bottom plate. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on the bottom plate and arrange them and put some hardware through, and then I'll come back to the video and show you how that's supposed to look before you put the mid plate on. Alright, so if you bought the kit from Armattan, you're going to have slightly different hardware. It'll be black. There'll be 12 screws that are really long. These are the screws you're going to use to assemble the bottom stack, and you would basically put 2 of them in each arm. So the 2 that go through, you can see I have the ones in the middle. These are going to create the stack for the flight controller and the PDB, and the outer ones are going to get lock nuts to secure it. The other 2 holes, which I don't have hardware in, are pass-throughs for the screw that's going to hold the standoffs in. But what you want to take close note of in this picture is that you can see the arms all butt together, but the way the little kink is, it creates a square opening in the front and in the back. Sorry for the shadow. And that basically gives you clearance for the FPV cam mount in the front, and a little bit of clearance in the back for the video transmitter, so that it's not touching the frame. You'll also notice that the slots for the strap kind of sit in between the arms. That's going to allow you to pass the strap around the whole stack when you have it completed. Alright, so the next step after you place the arms on the lower plate and you have the screws poking through is you take the mid plate, you basically sandwich all that. You'll notice, just like the arms, it has notches in the front and the back, and this is to give you the clearance for the video transmitter and the FPV cam. Now, the nuts that are supplied with the kit are M3 lock nuts, and you're going to put them at the outermost holes on the arm. And right now, I wouldn't tighten them down too much, just put them there to kind of hold it together. The next step, I'll start putting more hardware in. You can see where the flight controller stack's going to start to build up. Alright, to start the PDB stack with the flight controller, what you want to do is put these nylon nuts, they're M3 nuts, onto the 4 inner screws. And you don't want to tighten these too much, because you could probably strip them very easily. The screws that are supplied with the kit are steel, and even with the aluminum screws, you're very likely to pull the threads out of the nylon if you try to tighten this too much. So just give it a little snug. And then the next step is to go ahead and grab your Velcro strap that you're going to use to hold your LiPo in, because you're going to want to thread this through next. So I've got this strap from Ready Made RC, and I'm going to use this to hold my LiPo onto the bottom. Good idea would actually be to go ahead and grab a LiPo that you're going to use and help use it to basically position the strap where you want it, because once you put that PDB down, based on the thickness of the strap you're using and you know, anything that might be on the bottom of the PDB, it might actually clamp it down a little bit. So it's not going to want to move in and out too easily once you've got everything put together. So you'll want to have this position so that it's ideal for how you're going to strap the battery in. So now you can see I've used my battery and I've got my strap threaded through, and it's going around both the bottom top plate and all the arms. And then the screws will give there just a little bit of space so that the PDB kind of sits over the top of that. Now I can take the battery off now that I've kind of put the strap where I want it. You'll probably want to pull the buckle down as far as it'll go, most likely, and that'll work the best. So now we've got our strap through, we can go ahead and take our PDB. In this case I'm going to use the Maytech PDB. This is approximately $10. It's actually a really good value because it has both a 5-volt and a 12-volt regulator. And on this end, you can kind of see you solder your lead for your video transmitter and your cam directly to it, and then you got jumpers to decide whether you want to run 5, 12 volts or battery power to either of those components. So this really simplifies your wiring, and for $10 you really can't go wrong with it. So we're going to make sure that when we put this on here, we orient it in a manner so that the battery leads, which you can kind of see where it says battery plus and minus, we want those to come out the back side most likely. Now this is kind of preference. Some guys might build this with the battery leads coming out the side, and that's totally up to you, but I'm going to build it with the battery leads coming out the back. So I want to put the PDB on like this. And then what I'm going to do is, now that I've got that on there, I'm going to take the 4 standoffs that are made out of nylon that come with the kit, and I'm going to put them on there, and that'll hold that down. So now that you've got the PDB in, now I'm not going to show all the soldering of the motors and the ESCs. I think everyone kind of knows how to do that. If you're at this stage of the build, you've soldered in all your motors and your cabling, so you would probably have your battery lead coming out the back or the side. You'd have your VTX and your camera cables laid out and kind of sitting there probably. You'd have all your ESCs connected. So the next step would be to put your flight controller on the stack. In this case I've got a Lux board here. Just going to go right on top of the standoffs, which you can see I installed on top of the PDB. And then the remaining 4 nylon nuts that come with the kit will just go on top of that. And then when you're trying to find a place to put your receiver, you can either double-sided tape it on top of your flight controller, or you could take the top plate and zip tie it to the bottom side of that. It's up to your decision how you want to do that. So the last part before you put the standoffs and the top frame plate on is to kind of go ahead and assemble your camera. Now this frame is designed for the HS1177 camera, and it probably also fit the TBS00, I think it's called, because it's the same case design. But essentially you just take these 2 remaining carbon plates, which are the cam plates. They're 2mm thick, and you screw them to the sides of the cam using the screws that come with the camera. Now this one's already been installed in the frame, which is why you can see it's kind of already angled in and tightened down, but I would suggest leaving these screws loose. And then what you want to do is, once you have this assembly, this sub-assembly, you're basically gonna slot it in here. You can see it kind of just sits in there. These 2 little tabs on the bottom sit in these little slots, and the way this is designed, it kind of nestles in between the notch and the frame as well, the mid plate. We've done this. We're going to go ahead and set it to the side, and the next step is we're going to take the screws, the remaining 4 screws, the really long ones, and put them through both parts of the stack and put the standoffs on. The standoffs are 25mm. So now you can see we've taken the frame, we put the remaining pieces through the hardware other than the top plate and the camera mount. We've got 4 standoffs here, 25mm standoffs, and on the bottom we put in the remaining 4 screws that go straight through to those standoffs. So now we've got our stack built, and we're going to go ahead and take the camera. We're going to stick it in the front. So now we've got that. Now we can take our top plate, and now the top plate is it's 1.5mm carbon. You see you've got 3 holes in the back that are meant for VTX mounting. Now I'm going to be using this UBAD 200 milliwatt VTX, and this is a pretty common VTX. This is actually the same size as the Hawkeye 200 milliwatt. So I've really kind of designed the stack and everything around this size of video transmitter. Some transmitters may not fit, but I felt that these are very common and very often used in racing. So you can use one of these, and if you're really hard pressed for space, you can get something with an SMA extension on it and just put the extension in here, and then zip tie your video transmitter somewhere else where you can get to it easily. You would go ahead and you would mount this in there, connect it to your wiring. There's 3 holes, so you can offset this in the holes so that your dip switches are facing back, and that's going to depend on the video transmitter you're using. On the Hawkeyes and the UBAD, you can put this one right in the center hole, and when you mount it on the back, it's going to actually, if you stick it in the center hole like this, it's going to butt up right against the frame here. And it's going to leave just a little bit of room on the bottom for your cables to come out. Now the other transmitter that you might have, which I think I have sitting here, yeah, here we go, I have another one. This is your typical Boscam TS5823. This one's real nice too because you got dip switches on the back and you got this little connector that comes out the side. I haven't tried it yet to see if it'll mount in the center hole and fit there. It should. It's definitely short enough that it'll fit below the standoffs. The thing is, you might have to mount it offset to the right, and in the third hole it just depends on if the edge of the board is going to touch here. So you'll have to try it out. I'm going to go ahead and use the U-BAT transmitter, and like I said, a Hawkeye should work just the same as the U-BAT because they're pretty much the same transmitter package wise. So you can see I've taken the last bits of hardware and secured the top plate. There's the U-BAT 200 milliwatt race band VTX sitting in there. You can see how it lines up with the center hole and fits in the frame. Just a tiny little gap at the bottom for the connectors, and that's more than enough. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run my power lead beside it and out the bottom to the battery over there. Now I've just got a nut holding it on right now, but normally what I would do is have a small lock washer in the antenna, or you can use an O-ring. Some people use an O-ring. You'll also notice that the camera mounts, like they slotted into the bottom plate, also slot into the top plate. And there's going to be a little bit of compression on there, and if you look closely, it's hard to see in the video, but there's a little bit of bow in the top plate. That's going to keep that clamped down. Now once you've got this all together, you can take the camera and you can tilt it to the angle you desire and then tighten down the two side screws, and it'll stay there pretty well. It's all going to depend on how well you thread those screws in. You can strip the camera out, so you have to be careful. Now on the original kit, which is kind of built to what I thought I wanted out of a racer, the top plate and the side plates for the camera are going to limit your camera tilt to 35 degrees. So if you slam that camera all the way to the top so it's touching like I have it, you're going to get 35 degrees of tilt out. Now I have a Mod 1 version of the kit on Armattan's website right now, and basically what that does is you get a revised top plate and revised camera side plates, and it just repositions the hole for the camera a little bit forward of where it is and down. And also the top plate, even though it looks almost identical, this contour right here is cut back just a little bit. So when you buy that kit, if you take the camera and you tilt it all the way to its max position, you should get around 45 degrees of tilt. Now there's also a Mod 2 version of the frame, and the only difference between the Mod 1 and the Mod 2 is that if you look at the bottom, there's this opening underneath the camera. But if you get the Mod 2 version, I had a request to close that off, and some people were thinking that they would use different types of cameras, and what that allows them to do is basically mount the camera to the bottom plate however they want to. They could use foam, or they could use a 3D printed part, whatever they choose. But basically the Mod 2 is the same as the Mod 1, so you get the increased camera angle, but you have a closed off bottom plate, so it should be a tad bit heavier. I don't know how much. It's probably like a gram or something minor, so I wouldn't even worry about it. Now lastly, the kit does not come with the motor screws, and the reason is because a lot of motors are different. I didn't really want to put a motor screw in there that wouldn't be used or might be too long. So these are 4mm arms, and some motors come with screws. They may not be long enough, but you basically want to probably get a 6mm screw. So an M3 screw by 6mm in length will probably give you the amount of thread engagement you want minimally. Now some motors can take a longer screw, might be able to take a 7mm screw, and if you could do that, that would be nice, but at a minimum go with a 6 because you don't want to bottom out the screw on the windings. So in a nutshell, that's the assembly of the SCX-200 frame kit. I'm actually about to take this one back apart and actually build it up because I have all the motors and everything I need sitting here. I just haven't gotten around to building it. So look forward to more videos. I'm probably going to try and post videos of it flying and a maiden flight video, and after that, get some testing and develop some 3D printed accessories, which will actually be posted to Thingiverse for free. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can just email me or message me on YouTube. My email is on the Armattan page. You can just click email the seller and it'll send it directly to me.